The exhibition was hosted by the Colliery Staff Association at their Merriweather premises. Richard Face, stake member for Charlestown, reminisced with those at the opening about one of the events captured on film. He said he was just out of the picture when members of the Plumbers Union confronted Sir Robert Askin during a visit to the region. He wasn't, however, a plumber, but a policeman guarding Sir Robert. For long-time Novocastrians, the exhibition is sure to elicit a few nostalgic sighs and cries of "I remember that." Others can appreciate how history repeats itself. This photo shows a march by the unemployed in the 1930s protesting against a planned means test on dole recipients. Chairman of the Joint Coal Board, Jack Wilcox, said the photos represented the gradual coming together of the region's various unions. He said now, however, is not a time for the industry to become complacent.
This industry's got a problem of being competitive, and what we've got to do is to match the other suppliers in terms of competitiveness. We've got to remove the sometimes distorted views about the industrial problems in this area, and we've got to move actively into new markets.
The Matara Festival Office provided an appropriate setting for a meeting today of the executive of the association. The executive includes several senior local arts administrators, and the association is seeking membership of arts groups throughout the Hunter. It aims to support the industry by putting artists and consumers in closer contact, lobbying governments, and building up a bank of information on the local arts scene. Already, plans are being made to produce a directory of art workers and to publish an arts calendar that will appear in local newspapers. The association has applied to the Arts Council of New South Wales for money to employ an arts development officer to stimulate activities in the region. The formation of the association coincides with a report before the federal government, which recommends major changes to arts funding. The Macleay report suggests an end to Australia Council funding and the setting up of regional arts councils to administer money in their own areas. If the report is adopted, the local association could become a model for the rest of Australia.
Then it will mean that people here will be able to make decisions about how the funding goes, how the funding is distributed between the activities in the region. That it won't be something which will be decided in Sydney. Because, of course, if you're working in Sydney, you really don't know what exists up here and all the talents that exist up here.
The recently refurbished premises at 61 Scott Street has now become the city's community development centre. Built in the 1870s, the historical rooms once housed the Traffic Police Headquarters and the Department of Education. Under the guidance of the National Trust, the premises will be the base for community organisations, such as the Newcastle Family Support Service, Halfway House Project, Temporary Care Service, Neighbourhood Centre and the Housing Referral Service. Across the road, 6 other community groups, including the Pensioner Advisory Service and Parents Without Partners, will now move into their new base. Minister for Youth and Community Services John Aquilina opened the new centre, but not before a special announcement.
And in honour of her many achievements, I am honoured to announce that this centre will henceforth be known as the Joy Cummings Centre. Congratulations.
During her time as Lord Mayor, Joy Cummings was instrumental in establishing such a community centre in Newcastle. And in appreciation, the complex will now be known as the Joy Cummings Community Development Centre. Mr Aquilina says that the complex is part of the $10.4 million allocated to youth and community services in the Hunter region, and it's the people of the communities who will benefit the most.
That's tremendous because people will then be able to find out exactly where these centres are located. They'll be all centralised in the one area. They're close to bus links, they're close to railway links, and be able to provide a much better facility for the people of Newcastle than ever before.
Community organisation goes.
That's fine for the fringe benefits side. What happens if the decision has been made to take that expense out of the employer realm and it was now to be claimed by the individual.
I would say if the tax office put you on the secure, the answer would be
Where you've only done it for say 1 month out of the quarter.
what's reason?
The 7 years, same as substantiation. And work in the business with a partner. And for fringe benefits for them, there's no fringe benefits tax problem. The only problem, if the expense would have been tax deductible to the employee, a lot of the dentist giving free or discounted dental care to his nurses or employees. Same if it was someone off the street had to pay for it, and then that value is reduced by any payment or contribution that was provided for the children of the employee by the employer. The employer pays something that is not a tax deduction to them. There's no fringe benefits tax applicable.
The FAA says an alert controller spotted the misguided jetliner and ordered it back to proper altitude.
Mary? Yes, I have. Would you like another one? Help the news flow? Yes, I would, Cookie. Does that fit into our normal format like that? Centre on the side to hand it over to the mayor or...
Jump.
The council gave Dawn permission to go ahead with the project. Council.
Because I tend like looking at the dog as a shoot. That's more to the point.
The first fringe benefits tax return and payment falls due on the 28th of this month, and with fines of at least $2,000 for failure to pay, most employers are eager to find out the workings of the new legislation. And it's not an easy process, even though the special form looks simple. According to the organiser of today's seminar, Bruce Williams, most questions being asked concern the wide range of benefits included in the tax.
Well, the form is very simple, but it's deceptive. The form just contains the end result of what are, in many cases, complex calculations.
Do people in the wider community know what's involved with the fringe benefits tax?
I think they realise they've got a problem. I think a lot of people are keeping their heads down, hoping it'll go away, but it's not going to. I think most people here today realise they've got a problem and they just want to get the forms filled in and get the taxes paid.
Today at the Tysfield Tech, hundreds of high school girls were trying their hands at some of the more non-traditional business and technical occupations. Sewing needles and mix masters were left behind as mechanical engineering and metallurgy took over.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
In tonight's news, two sisters aged 19 and 16 had an amazing escape from serious injury this morning when their car plowed into a goods train on a level crossing at Patterson. Incredibly, the sisters from Gresford suffered only minor injuries in the smash.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
Stay
Stella Sullivan has lived at the Lakeside Lodge nursing home for the past 14 years. She receives the old age pension, a supplementary miner's pension and the Commonwealth bed subsidy. Her family pays the shortfall. The fortnightly fee has risen from $776.30 to $857.50, an increase of just over $81. Her family's contribution has risen from $18.80 a fortnight to $100. Her granddaughter Marilyn Dury says they just can't afford the extra money.
We at this stage don't know what's going to happen to Nana, because that's $100 a fortnight that's just sort of going to add up and up and up, and there's just thousands of people like myself with relatives, mothers, grandmothers in homes that just won't be able to pay.
The department says the fee hike will cover payroll expenses to nursing homes following the introduction of the 38-hour week for nurses and their recent award increases. But for Marilyn Dury, it means she may have to find her grandmother another home.
We just won't pay because we can't pay, and then we'll just have to see what happens with Nana.
The Department of Community Services says it won't come to that. Senator Grimes' office expects federal cabinet to approve an increase in the Commonwealth bed subsidy to offset the additional cost within the next 3 weeks.
Okay, happy?
Yep.
The total distance covered by contestants is some 10 kilometres. They start with a swim from the skiff club to the yacht club. That in itself is a test of some 1 kilometre and will sort the men from the boys. Then it's on foot to Pelican, down the highway. Onto surf skis and a long paddle down Swansea Channel to the surf boat shed, where the ski is traded on a Malibu surfboard for the paddle around the break wall to the beach. Then it's a sprint to the line where the first place getter wins the goodies supplied by sponsor Jay's Travel. Divisions for open, junior and cadet surfers are available, as are over 30s and over 40s for those chasing their youth. The top should be home in around 1 hour, depending on the run of the tide in Swansea Channel.
Reverend Canon Samuel Van Coolen is visiting Newcastle as part of a Southern Hemisphere familiarisation tour in his role as Secretary-General of the Anglican Consultative Council. He says the growth of Christianity in the southern regions of the world is bringing a more multicultural approach to the ministry.
Do you think this will make the church stronger?
I think it'll make the church more real. I think it will link the church more deeply to the kind of world that is evolving, and in that sense I hope it will strengthen its witness.
The 10th Annual Children's Week Conference at the College featured displays of educational aids and an impressive lineup of guest speakers, all experts in early childhood education. 140 teachers were on hand to hear American academic Dr. Elizabeth Jones from Pacific Oaks College in California. Dr. Jones told the conference that adults must learn to actively listen to children. The theme of the conference was communication in the year of peace, and the keynote address was given by Dr. Di Bretherton from Melbourne CAE. Dr. Bretherton says children from a very young age should be taught peace studies to give them a more positive outlook on the world.
If you go around and you interview adolescents, you find a large number of them are very concerned about the future. For example, I found 75% of the young people we interviewed believed their life would end in a nuclear war, and 49% of those felt it would happen at any moment. In other words, they don't believe that they have a future.
Western turned out in force for the fun day, which featured dozens of stalls and rides. The fun day was the work of the Curry Hospital Lifesaving Fund, a small group of miners with their hearts in the right place. The highlight of the day was to have been a coal shovelling contest, with $500 in prize money from the Joint Coal Board. Unfortunately, it seems the miners weren't keen to pick up shovels because the contest received no entries and had to be cancelled. Despite that, fundraising efforts have generally been very successful, with the miners raising $17,500 for the hospital in the last 3 months. The target is $60,000, and the fund has received a commitment that the state government will match the total dollar for dollar. Coalfields miners have a long history of supporting Curry Hospital, as organiser Merv Sampson explains.
Back to about 1903, I believe. In fact, the miners were instrumental in building the hospital, and they were levied each week out of their pay for money to keep the hospital going until about 1947 when the government subsidy came in.
Meanwhile, at Abermain, St Joseph's Convent has just completed a major facelift of its playground. The school received a $35,000 federal government CEP grant to employ 3 workers. They spent 6 months transforming the playground, which was little more than rock and clay, to an almost ideal environment for children. A green playing field, complete with a built-in sprinkler system, has replaced the rock. There is now a whole range of playground equipment, including a racetrack for toy cars. Parents say the new playground has made their children much happier.
The difference has to be seen to be believed. Playground duty now for the teachers at the school is a pleasure.
Hi, I'm Lee Moore at Merriweather Golf Course today for the Champion of Champions in the Ladies Golf Union. It's a great tournament on a beautiful day. Be watching tonight.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
What Australia Post calls its postal commodity vending machine is really a revamped confectionery dispenser. Only this machine spits out envelopes, aerograms, stamp folders and jiffy packs. The vending machine was installed at the Lake Macquarie Fair 1 week ago. It's one of 3 in New South Wales. Brian Yates, the acting divisional manager of Australia Post, says it's an additional customer service and that the machines will not replace postal workers.
It saves people going to post offices to pick up these items that they can obtain in large centres like this.
Is it possible, though, that they could replace smaller post offices throughout the region?
Not with a machine like this, they wouldn't, no. We don't have any plans to replace any small post office agencies with a machine of this type.
The machine now goes on trial for 3 months, and if successful, Australia Post will look at introducing more at other shopping centres and hospitals.
All 55 musicians rely on sales at the box office, government funding and private sponsorship to keep the orchestra on the stage. The Parry Foundation, an organisation set up to support needy projects in the region, has come to the assistance of the orchestra with a sizable grant.
We are donating today $10,000 to the Hunter Orchestra.
Well, why has the Parry Foundation decided to give this grant to the orchestra?
The orchestra has achieved much in the Hunter in the short time of its existence, but it's going to expand. Its influence will be right up and down the Hunter and I think beyond, and we feel that it needs this additional finance to enable it to usefully undertake some of this extensive work that's in prospect for the future.
The money will secure the December season And the Hunter Orchestra's administrator, Anne Smith, and Chairman Professor David Frost say it's come at a needy time.
Well, what it means is we'll be able to honour all our commitments for the rest of this year, and in particular we'll be able to mount the December season, which was very important to us because we have one major pops concert, Christmas pops concert, which is aimed to expand our audience with people who like little bits of classical music and would come to hear some more. And then we're also, for the first time, venturing out of the valley to Mr. Margolin's Villa Notre Dame, where we're doing, if you like, a command performance there. And we're doing a peace concert at the cathedral because it's the year of peace, and also another city hall concert in that season.
During the past 2 months, the park has undergone a major facelift. Tens of thousands of dollars have been spent in window dressing and improving the display pits, while signposts and some new specimens have been added. A leafy walkway, a landscape picnic area and children's playground are among the facilities. Only 6 months ago, the park was in severe financial difficulties, but according to Managing Director Ed Manners, it's on the road to recovery.
We do have one or two things to do to get it completely out of the red, but all the financial arrangements are in place.
Mr Manners' co-partners are Bobby Lim and the park's founders, Eric and Robin Worrell. They enlisted singer Julie Anthony for the opening ceremony. She was accompanied by a ringing reptile. Amongst the inhabitants of the park, it was smiles all round.
The new company's faith in creatures like this Indian python and their ability to draw the tourist dollar is borne out by the fact that they intend to invest another $1.4 million next year.
While plans are still being finalised, the expansion involves the construction of 40 timber holiday cottages adjacent to the park and the opening of a commercial aviary, aquarium and plant nursery.
The meeting began with Alderman Vic Bell moving a motion for Council to err on the side of caution and hold off giving its approval for the development application until there was a 14-day period of public scrutiny. He also said that the developer should provide a model of the project before Council made its decision. Labor Alderman Ron Robinson put forward an amendment that approval should be given, and when that was seconded by Citizens Group leader Don Davies, the ratification of the amendment became a foregone conclusion. In the interest of letting all parties have their say, Lord Mayor John McNaughton allowed the aldermanic debate to continue, but when it came to the vote, it was still the three independents against the rest. Alderman Tate says the details like the 188 car parking spaces deficiency should have been worked out before this important development application was approved.
This is a good development, except for the problem of car parking, and I think that should be addressed now rather than giving approval and then later on trying to cope with the problem. When we have to cope with it later, it'll be, unfortunately, at the cost of the ratepayers, and I don't think that's fair.
The town planner, Mr Gary Fielding, says there will be time for public comment. He says design drawings and a detailed model will be completed, and then the public will be asked to make formal submissions. This procedure should take about 3 months, and he says the council still has a lot of negotiating power before the building application goes before it.
Rugby league personalities from all over the region were on hand for the presentations which mark the end of a tumultuous season, which saw Newcastle finally get the nod to enter the Sydney Premiership. Several of the players who took the stage made it clear that they're looking forward to the prospect of mixing it with the world's best in Sydney. Player of the Year was Tony Keevil from Souths, a former Balmain player and country rep this year. He's now...